Imagine lying in bed at 2 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, feeling that familiar pull from your stomach. You tell yourself you already ate well that day. You tell yourself you shouldn't get up. You tell yourself you're not truly hungry, and yet something inside you pushes you toward the kitchen. A strange mix of restlessness, craving, and compulsion. You walk down the hallway, half awake. You open the fridge. You eat something quick, something sweet, something salty, something that gives you a moment of relief, and 10 minutes later, you're back in bed wondering why this keeps happening. Most people think midnight cravings are about hunger. They think their stomach is empty. They think their body needs fuel. They think it's age, metabolism, stress, or habit. But I'll tell you the truth. You do not wake up because you are hungry. You wake up because your dopamine is out of control. When dopamine spikes from sugar, it creates a loop in the brain that does not turn off. It waits, it lingers, it whispers. And for millions of people in way, if you are a boomer, this pattern is even stronger. Your sleep is lighter. Your dopamine sensitivity is lower. Your insulin response is slower. And sugar hits your brain harder than it did 30 years ago. The result is a nightly cycle that feels like hunger, but is really chemical withdrawal. Your brain is searching for the next small hit of reward because it didn't get stability during the day. People come to me ashamed of this pattern. They think it means they lack discipline. They think it means they're weak. They think something is wrong with them. But the truth is simple and biological. Sugar disrupts your reward pathway. It hijacks the same circuits that addictive substances manipulate. It doesn't matter whether you call it dessert, just a bite of something. Once dopamine spikes in the evening, it keeps your reward system activated all night. That activation pulls you out of deep sleep. It wakes you up at 2 in the morning and it pushes you toward food, even when your stomach is not asking for anything. But here is the part that matters most. You can shut down midnight cravings completely, not with willpower, not with rules, not with tricks, with protein. One simple protein intervention before dinner can stabilize your reward pathway, silence your dopamine spikes, balance your appetite hormones, and eliminate nighttime cravings in just 10 days. I have used this strategy with thousands of patients. It works predictably, reliably, and quickly. Let me explain the mechanism in plain language. When you eat sugar or fast carbohydrates in the evening, your dopamine spikes. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of reward, pleasure, reinforcement, and compulsion. When dopamine spikes late in the day, your brain begins expecting more. Your body interprets this expectation as a craving. And because nighttime is when cortisol drops and melatonin rises, the craving feels stronger, sharper, and more emotional. That is why midnight cravings feel so overwhelming. It is not hunger, it is chemistry colliding with your circadian rhythm. Protein blocks this cycle, not by suppressing appetite, but by stabilizing the reward system. Protein releases amino acids that activate satiety hormones, calm dopamine fluctuations, and blunt the reward response triggered by evening sugar. It gives your brain the signal that you are nourished, satisfied, and safe. When you eat a small amount of protein before dinner, you prevent the dopamine spike from happening. In the first place, you remove the chemical trigger that wakes you at night. You silence the mechanism at its source. This is why one egg, one sardine, or one small piece of cheese can transform your nights in 10 days. Not because they fill your stomach, but because they stabilize your brain. Let me take you inside the chemistry for a moment. When you eat protein, your body releases glucagon and peptide IY, hormones that slow digestion and calm your appetite. More importantly, amino acids from protein compete with sugar for transport across the blood-brain barrier. This reduces the dopamine spike sugar creates. Protein tells your brain you're fed, you're safe. You don't need reward. Sugar tells your brain, I want more, keep searching. One message puts you to sleep. The other wakes you up at midnight. The older you are, the more dramatic this effect becomes. After 60, your dopamine receptors are less responsive. This means sugar produces higher spikes and deeper crashes. It means cravings are more intense. It means withdrawal is stronger. It means midnight eating becomes a pattern that feels impossible to break. But the same aging process also makes you respond faster to the solution. Give your brain protein at the right time, and your cravings shut down faster than you expect. I remember a man in his early 70s who came to me exhausted because he was waking up every night to eat. He said it felt like someone else was controlling his legs. He didn't feel hungry. He felt compelled. When he started the protein trick, he thought it was too simple to work. 10 days later, he told me he had slept through the night for the first time. His cravings were gone. His sleep was deeper. His energy was better. And he felt like his life had been given back to him. The most impressive part was that the solution was not restrictive. It was not punishing. It was not complicated. It was one egg before dinner. That was it. Another woman in her mid-60s struggled with nighttime eating for decades. She would fall asleep quickly, but wake up almost every night around 3 in the morning craving cereal. When she told me this, I knew immediately it was dopamine, not hunger. She followed the 10-day protocol, adding one small portion of sardines before dinner each night. Her midnight awakenings disappeared. She described it as someone flipping a switch in her brain. That switch was protein stabilizing her reward pathway. Midnight cravings do not come from your stomach. They come from your brain. And your brain listens to protein. The 10-day plan is simple. 10 days, one small protein dose, no sugar after dinner, slow carbohydrates instead of fast ones, and absolutely no dessert. This is not optional. Dessert resets your dopamine loop and forces your brain back into craving mode. People think dessert is harmless if it's small, but even a tiny amount of sugar in the evening can trigger nighttime cravings. Your brain does not need dessert. It needs stability. And stability starts with protein. Once you begin the protein intervention, the changes start surface level, almost subtle, but they grow quickly. On the first night, most people still wake up. Their brain is used to being rewarded at midnight, and dopamine habits do not vanish instantly, but something feels different. The craving feels softer, less urgent, more like an echo than a command. But you will notice you need less food to satisfy the urge. This is your reward system losing its grip. By the second or third night, something remarkable begins to happen. You still might wake up, but instead of craving sugar or something sweet, you simply feel awake and a little restless. That is the craving mechanism shutting down. Your dopamine pathways are recalibrating. They are learning that you are no longer feeding them. At night, your brain is adapting quicker than you expect. People often tell me they are shocked by how quickly the biological shift begins. They expect to fight cravings for weeks. They expect a long struggle, but biology responds fast when you approach it correctly. Routine before dinner gives your brain exactly what it needs to stop searching for reward. It stabilizes your satiety signals. It slows the dopamine wave. It keeps your blood sugar steady into the night. And as those signals strengthen, your midnight awakenings. By day 4 or 5, many people sleep through the night for the first time in years. When they wake up, they feel strangely refreshed, almost confused by the sensation of continuity. They cannot believe that something so small, one egg, one sardine, one piece of cheese, could have such a dramatic effect on their sleep. But this is how the brain works. It listens to chemistry. Let me explain why this happens physiologically. At night, when melatonin rises, insulin sensitivity drops. This means your body cannot handle sugar effectively after dinner. If you eat dessert or anything sweet at night, your blood sugar stays elevated for hours. That elevation affects dopamine. Dopamine stays stimulated, and stimulated dopamine wakes you up in the middle of the night. Protein, on the other hand, stabilizes blood sugar. It activates glucagon, which balances insulin. It slows gastric emptying, keeping your appetite calm. It releases calming amino acids like tryptophan, which support your sleep cycle, and it prevents dopamine spikes by competing for transport into the brain. You do not get the sugar-driven reward hit. You get biochemical calm. This calm is what stops midnight cravings. But here's the part most people miss. The protein dose must be small. Too much protein before dinner can slow digestion excessively and make you feel heavy too. Little protein will not trigger the metabolic response. The ideal range is between 10 and 15 grams, one egg, one sardine, one small piece of cheese. This is enough to stabilize your dopamine and your appetite without weighing down your digestion. This intervention works even better when you support it with slow carbohydrates in the evening. Slow carbohydrates digest gently. They release glucose gradually. They avoid the spike crash pattern that triggers cravings. Examples include legumes, quinoa, oats, or roasted vegetables. These foods work with protein to create a stable metabolic environment at night. Fast carbohydrates like white rice, white bread, pasta, and desserts destroy this environment. They digest quickly. They spike glucose. They trigger dopamine. They activate cravings, and they wake you up. This is why I tell people that your midnight hunger is not a failure of discipline. It is a consequence of what you ate 3 to 5 hours earlier. One woman in her late 60s told me she had been waking up for years at roughly the same time every night. After listening to her explain her routines, I realized she was eating a bowl of cereal with milk every evening. Her light dinner, that cereal was pure sugar. It spiked her dopamine, carried her into the night in a biochemical storm. When she replaced that cereal with a small omelet, her awakenings disappeared within days. She didn't need therapy, habit training, or self-control. She needed protein and slow carbs. By day 7 of the protein protocol, something deeper begins to shift. Your leptin and ghrelin, your two main hunger hormones, start recalibrating. Ghrelin, the hormone that stimulates hunger, leptin, the hormone that signals satiety, begins working again. Sugar damages both hormones. Protein restores them. And once these two hormones rebalance, the entire experience of nighttime hunger, you no longer feel pulled toward the kitchen. You no longer confuse cravings with hunger. You no longer wake up with that urgent need to eat something. Your body has regained control over its appetite. At this stage, people often describe a sense of emotional relief. They say things like, I didn't realize how much sugar controlled me, or I didn't know sleep could feel this peaceful, or I finally feel like my brain is on my side. These statements are not poetic. They are biochemical truths. When your dopamine is stable, your sleep becomes restorative. When your insulin is stable, your brain stays quiet. When your hormones are balanced, your cravings, and all of this begins with one change that takes less than 15 seconds a day. By day 8 or 9, the majority of people sleep through the night without interruption. Their cravings have shut down. Their sleep quality has improved dramatically. Their morning energy feels stable and strong. They wake up without brain fog. Their digestion improves. Their mood feels more grounded. Their evening appetite becomes calmer. And many even notice their belly beginning to shrink because stable overnight insulin allows fat metabolism to resume. This is the point where people begin to believe it. This is the moment they realize midnight cravings were never psychological, they were biochemical. And by the time you reach day 10, the transformation becomes impossible to ignore. You lie down at night with a sense of calm you haven't felt in years. You fall asleep. You stay asleep longer. You wake up without that heavy, foggy feeling that used to follow you like a shadow. Your nights are no longer divided into fragments. They're whole again. And something even more powerful happens. You no longer think about food in the middle of the night. The cravings that once felt like a force dragging you out of bed have vanished. The kitchen no longer calls you. The fridge no longer whispers to you. Your brain is quiet. Your reward pathways have stopped firing at the wrong time. And you begin to understand something very important. Midnight hunger was never real hunger, it was chemistry. And now the chemistry has changed. Once your cravings disappear, you begin noticing all the ways this change improves your life. You wake up with the kind of mental clarity you haven't experienced in decades. Your mornings are easier. Your motivation improves. Your mood becomes steadier. You feel lighter, clearer, younger. When your dopamine stabilizes at night, it stabilizes during the day too. You stop thinking about food constantly. You stop chasing sugar. You stop feeling controlled by cravings. You finally feel free. Let me take you deeper into what's happening inside your body at this point. When you stop waking up at night for food, your cortisol stays stable. Stable cortisol means your morning blood sugar is lower. Lower morning blood sugar means your insulin is calmer throughout the day. Calmer insulin means your metabolism begins burning fat instead of storing it. This is why so many people notice that their belly begins to shrink once their sleep stabilizes. Fat loss isn't just about diet, it's about sleep. And sleep isn't just about rest, it's about chemistry. Once dopamine stops waking you up, your can melatonin is not only a sleep hormone, it is one of your body's strongest antioxidants. It protects your brain, it protects your mitochondria, it protects your metabolism. When you sleep deeply, melatonin repairs the cellular damage caused by stress, food, and inflammation. Midnight cravings destroy this repair cycle. This is why so many of my patients tell me they feel younger, their skin looks brighter, their eyes look clearer, their morning energy feels stronger, their mood becomes calmer. People think aging is inevitable, but so much of what we call aging is actually inefficient biology. Fix the biology and the aging slows. By the end of the 10-day protocol, you also notice something quieter, but equally important. Your evenings become more peaceful. You don't feel the restless urge to snack after dinner. You don't obsess over dessert. You don't feel empty. When you're not eating, your appetite becomes something simple again, something honest, something predictable. That is the difference between true hunger and dopamine-driven cravings. Hunger whispers, cravings shout. And after 10 days, the shouting stops. Let me tell you about a patient who taught me a lot about this process. He was 69 and frustrated because he had spent years waking up at night to eat. He hid cereal boxes in his kitchen because he didn't want his wife to see how often he ate at midnight. He would wake up exhausted, angry at himself, and ashamed. When he learned the protein trick, he didn't believe it would work. He said, "Doctor, I've been doing this for 15 years. One egg isn't going to fix me." But he tried it. And 10 days later, he came back with tears in his eyes, not because of the food, because of the sleep. For the first time in more than a decade, he felt human. He felt alive. He felt like he had regained something he thought he lost forever. All of that from one egg, 10 grams of protein, 10 days of consistency. Another patient, a woman in her early 60s, told me something similar. She said she didn't realize how much her midnight cravings were affecting her marriage. She was irritable during the day, exhausted in the morning, and emotionally reactive. Once she slept through the night, her personality, she felt calmer, happier, more patient. She said she felt like she got her life back. That is what dopamine stability does. It gives you your life. The most surprising part of this entire protocol is how small the change is. One tiny serving of protein before dinner, you're not restricting, you're not starving, you're not punishing yourself. You are stabilizing your hormones in the simplest, most powerful way possible. And you're undoing decades of dopamine conditioning. But I need to warn you about one thing. If you eat dessert after dinner, dessert is the biochemical grenade that resets your dopamine loop. Even something healthy like honey or dark chocolate sugar in the evening is the biggest enemy of sleep. If you want to sleep like you did when you were 20, you cannot trigger dopamine at night. Protein calms the system. Sugar, the 10-day protocol, is not a punishment. It is a reset. It is a way to give your brain the stability it has been missing for years. It is a way to silence the cravings that keep you tired, frustrated, and ashamed. It is a way to restore your sleep so your body can repair itself the way it is designed to. Imagine yourself 10 days from now. Imagine lying down and falling asleep easily. Imagine sleeping through the night without interruption. Imagine waking up refreshed with a steady mind and a calm appetite. Imagine walking past sugary food without feeling pulled toward it. Imagine feeling in control of your nights and your cravings for the first time in years. That is what the protein trick gives you. And it works faster than you think. I may be a tough doctor, but I say this with compassion. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not failing. You are dealing with chemistry that has been working against you for decades. But chemistry can be changed, and you just learned how to change it. 10 days, one protein dose, no dessert, and you will sleep like you did when you were 20